Hello there, Tempo. Wasn't that just the most brilliant keynote from Candy Williams? Let's give her another round of applause. Woo! Candy, yeah! Go! Well done. And now let's talk about an idea that I call transparent recruiting. I'm Jonathon Colman, a senior design manager at Hubspot, and spoiler alert, I'm going to show you how we hired 16 new content designers onto our team in just 5 months. Find me on Twitter or LinkedIn at jcoleman. Please reach out to me if you got any questions or you need more information. I'm always happy to follow up with you. And look, I know you're probably watching this at home. You're multitasking, or you may need to go take care of the kids or your pets, or leave to get vaccinated or go to vote. So that's okay. You can find this talk and all related resources gathered all together in one place. bit.ly/transparent recruiting, all one word. Now, this is the thesis for this talk, and we're going to come back to it many, many times. If you take away nothing else from what I'm about to show you, try to remember this. People perform their best when they know what's expected of them. And if you keep that in mind, you'll always sail your ship in the right direction. But for now, let's dig into why this is important. Recruiting is one of the most important competencies for people managers, but it's a missing one. Why? Because almost none of us have a background in it, or we assume it's someone else's job, or no one's trained us on how to do it well, or we simply don't have time to do it. So we end up optimizing for shortcuts like blast emails or other outreach that scales. But that tactic is how you end up with something like this. A real email that Microsoft recruiters sent out to prospective candidates to get them to attend their event. It's impersonal, it's hilariously inauthentic, and rather than build their brand as an employer, it made them the main character on Twitter for days. Much like content strategy, it turns out that recruiting is all about people. And so maybe we should be less eager to scale, especially when we don't have anything of substance. If you're a hiring manager, then recruiting is your job. This isn't meant to disrespect your recruiters or imply that they're not talented or great at what they do. They are. But they don't have your domain expertise, your knowledge of the industry, or your familiarity with the people you're trying to reach. And more to the point, your recruiters probably want you to work with them more than you do today. So here's the bottom line. You likely need to invest yourself more in recruiting than you do now. This quote from Peter Merholtz, co-founder of Adaptive Path, really says it all. Recruiting is the most impactful thing a hiring manager can do because it helps unlock teams to make more progress. Peter points out that there's a reason why managers don't invest enough in recruiting, and it's because of this vicious cycle. You don't have enough designers, so you lean in to do the work yourself, which means that you no longer have time to invest in finding new designers. So we need to break this cycle. But how? To go back to the Microsoft example from earlier, you might be tempted to view recruiting as a marketing tactic. If you reach out to enough people, surely some of them will follow up with you and apply for your roles, right? I want to change your mind about that by asking a question. Instead of viewing recruiting as a marketing practice, what if we viewed it as a people management practice? Think of all the things you do as a people manager. Set people up for success. You set clear expectations from the start, and you coach people to help them grow and improve their performance. So why don't we also practice these behaviors with candidates for our roles? Instead, we tend to take a kind of adversarial approach. We make them guess about what we care about or force them to read our minds. But why? People aren't mind readers, or at least I'm not. I don't want anyone to have to guess what I care about, what I'm looking for, why it matters to me, or what I think good looks like. And as a people manager, you would never do this with someone on your team. So why do it with someone who's applying to be on your team? The answer is that you just shouldn't. Because people perform their best when they know what's expected. I wish it were more complicated than that, but it's really as simple as that. This is why Jared Spool reminds us that the hiring process should be a designed experience. More to the point, It's designed regardless of whether you intentionally design it or not. But your candidates can always tell where the gaps are and what's broken, and that's why we lose them. So let's look at some examples of folks and companies who are doing amazing work to design their hiring experience with the candidate solidly involved. Here's a job post from Upwork that features a compelling opening vision. Here, they ask you to imagine a world where you solve important problems for people with the support of highly collaborative partners and a leader who cares about you and your work. That is super motivating. This isn't just something that's important for content designers. Let's look at another job post for a PM role from Who Gives a Crap. Here, they lay out a compelling story about all the amazing work you would have done if you were in this role 6 months ago. And so this paints a clear picture of what a candidate can expect to do in the role. It's brilliant. And here's an engineering job post from Gain Compliance. And it's a fascinating example because they're very open about the challenges you'll face in the role. Look at the highlighted bit where they're transparent about their tech debt. This is incredible openness, and it sets up candidates to better understand what they're getting into. That way, they can address how they've solved for infra problems and other tech debt issues as they interview. More importantly, the humility shown here by the employer goes a great way towards earning candidates' trust, because every place has its problems, but almost no one is open about them. Beyond job posts, think about the other ways that employers try to set expectations. For example, by showing their Polaris design system openly to the public, Shopify helped designers of all sorts understand what they care about, optimize for, and what it's like to build with their own components. And here's a novel example from Mark Johnson at Mixpanel. Instead of sharing out a job post with their open design roles, he and his team created a public Figma board instead. When you jump into it, you can see how open they are about the role, the company, what their interviews are like, and more. Plus, you can see other people in the file in real time, leave comments, and get responses to your questions. It's amazing. Intercom and other companies have made their career ladders public so that potential candidates can understand what their expectations are, what good looks like, and how they could advance in the role. And here, Atlassian give candidates very detailed information about their interview process, including many tips for success and standing out. There's no way a candidate would be able to know any of these things up front unless the company chose to tell them. But when someone joins your company, it's likely that they have a full onboarding plan that walks them through things like culture and values and expectations, the design system, what good looks like, and so on. You never make someone new on your team guess about those things. So why do it with candidates? People perform their best when they know what's expected of them. Okay, so how do you do this yourself? There's lots of examples out there, and hey, you could just copy them. But how do you figure out what's going to be right and work best for you and your team? I'm going to walk you through how we did this at Hubspot last fall. You remember a few minutes ago, I mentioned right at the beginning that we hired 16 people onto our team in just 5 months. Well, here's how we did it. First, you have to be willing to challenge conventions. Your team may not be set up for transparency, and so you should ask why. What makes the way we do things so good that we're not open to changing them? Grace Hopper's words here show us the danger of having a closed mindset. So at HubSpot, we started by asking ourselves 4 key questions about our process. We also asked past candidates and our team these questions as well. First, who were we looking for? We wanted to better understand the people we wanted to hire, what their goals were, and what they found compelling. And we tried to figure out what causes them pain. What are the frustrations and barriers in their current roles? How do they feel held back or limited? And what's causing them anxiety? And then we shift to our differentiators and what we have to offer that no one else can. Beyond vague generalities like world-class design or build at scale, what are our specific value props? Finally, we interrogated our process by considering what made it hard or challenging. How might we take these barriers away and just make it easy? Asking these 4 questions led us to create 2 strategic pillars. The first was to show people that we understand them. We did this by always centering the candidate in our messages, always referring to them as you. We often led with messages about their pain points, how they were excluded or artificially limited in their current roles instead of being set up for growth and success. But the second pillar was to default to being open. Instead of hiding important information like our expectations or what good looks like, we lead with openness instead. By defaulting to open, we took away the guessing game so that we could help more candidates succeed. 4 questions, 2 key ideas. I wish it were more complicated than that, but it's not. And now I'll walk you through some of the outputs of this strategy. This will show you how we applied this thinking as we work directly with candidates. Here's a few things we did in our job posts for our open content design roles. First, we say up front that this role is focused on UX and product, not content marketing or related competencies. And a lot of our candidates told us directly this gave them confidence that they were applying for the right role. Then we highlight that they still might use different titles than us, and we reassure them that we'll welcome them anyways. And this is important because, as Christina Halverson has recently pointed out, titles in our industry are a hot mess express. So we shouldn't turn someone away just because they call themselves, say, a UX writer and not a content designer. Now, this theme of empowering people continues through the job posts, but this point we make at the end is where it hits its apex. Rather than a vague, bland statement about how diversity is important to us, we take a moment to engage in some real talk. Now, here, we discuss how many candidates struggle with imposter syndrome and the confidence gap, especially if they don't check all the boxes or come from backgrounds that aren't thought of as being standard, or if they've been marginalized or actively excluded in the past. But beyond showing people that we understand them, we try to go the extra mile by sharing that we feel these things too. And it's not an act. This was easy, simple for me to write because it's how I feel. You may not believe it, but I am fucking terrified right now. I'm convinced you're all going to laugh at me, call my idea shit, and run me out of this industry because I'm nothing but a fraud, and I always have been. I'm not telling candidates that I understand them. I'm showing them. And since we ask candidates to be vulnerable and to show us examples of their work, we wrote a public blog post that details exactly what we look for in them and why that matters to us. And this helps us set up those candidates for success. The goal here was simply to remove barriers to people applying by making it as easy as possible. You might think this is some sort of a cheat sheet, but it's not. Putting together your work samples or portfolio is still really, really hard work. But what we do here is take away that guessing game by helping candidates understand our expectations and what good looks like. A key way we did that was to link off to several portfolios that we thought were good. Beyond setting expectations for candidates, this also helped us highlight a number of great folks working in the field. I tried to find people who were doing great work, who came from diverse backgrounds, worked all around the world, and who were not already well known. It wasn't easy or fast, but it was worth the effort. These folks were pleased that we reached out to them, and they gave us permission to highlight their amazing work, and several of them ended up applying for our roles as well. In the blog post, we tried to show candidates the kinds of questions we ask whenever we look at design work. This was intended to help them think through the kind of stories they should tell about their designs, how they made decisions, why their choices were good, and so on. And this isn't just an intellectual exercise. These really are the questions we ask. When candidates are in our interview process, we continue to set them up for success by giving them prep guides like the one you see here. When we ask candidates to present their work to us during an interview, we repeat those questions from the blog post and also link out to additional resources to define complex subjects and otherwise help them do their best. James Deere, founder of workingincontent.com, also gave us the opportunity to do a live Ask Us Anything event for his community. And this was an excellent opportunity for people to ask questions that they cared about of actual HubSpot content designers working on our team. I'm so grateful to Dane Tupkin, Catherine Carr, and Natalie Rohrer for being so brave and open, straightforward with their answers. Here's one of many subjects that people asked about, and it's on a challenging matter: mental health and imposter syndrome. And rather than give a vague, general answer, here Catherine Carr leads off by showing that this is something she struggles with herself. It's so real, and it shows people that we get them. And by being open about our own issues, we earn their trust. Show people you understand them, default to open. This is the way. People perform their best when they know what's expected of them. So maybe that all looks good in a slide deck, but did it actually work? I'll let you be the judge. Using these two strategic pillars, we earned over 1,000 organic applications for our open roles. None of these were sourced through direct outreach, bought from lists, or contacted by spam. And this is during a time when candidates had more opportunities open to them than ever before, and they still chose to apply to us. Why? Because we understood them, and we defaulted to being open. We conducted over 200 interviews with incredibly talented people. Ultimately, we hired 16 people in just 5 months. These people are now unlocking value across our entire product org and helping to solve our customers' problems. And it's all because we took the time to design their hiring experience and approach them like managers instead of like recruiters. More than that, we also developed hundreds of new, long-term relationships with people doing work that we admire. We'll come back to them in the future as they develop and we continue to open new roles. Now, much as I like HubSpot and think we're great and all, we're not special. You can do this too. And when you try it, you'll find what I found. It just feels right. It feels good when you remove artificial barriers from people's paths, when you give them clarity instead of making them guess, and when you set them up to succeed. You may even find yourself doing a little happy dance at home. So let's recap. Do the work. Ask the questions to show people that you understand them. Deeply empathize with their feelings, their struggles, and the pain they feel. Everyone wants to be seen and recognized. We do this all the time with our teams, but so rarely with our candidates. So don't scale at any cost. Instead, you should invest in candidates as if they're already on your team. Approach them as a manager instead of as a recruiter. And then default to open. Don't take an adversarial approach, make them guess, or force them to read your mind, and then grade them on how good they are at ESP instead of at solving problems with a design approach. Just be open. It saves your candidates and you time, anxiety, and doubt while building your confidence and your team. Why? Because people will always perform their best when they know what's expected of them. And that's transparent recruiting, our approach of blending traditional recruiting methods with performance management. I'm Jonathon Colman from Hubspot. I can't wait to hear about how you apply these ideas to your own recruiting practices. So please share them with me so that we can all continue learning and growing together. I'm at J. Colman on both Twitter and LinkedIn. And again, you can get to these slides and all related resources at bit.ly/transparent recruiting. That's all one word. Now play us out, Mindy, and thank you all so much.